Joining me now, attorney and Democratic strategist Adam Sostrin and conservative talk show host Autry Pruitt. Gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys, this press conference was quite entertaining, over an hour long. I mean, we practically needed popcorn to watch this whole thing. Autry, let me start with you. President Trump attacking the media in this way. We saw a little highlight reel just a moment ago. This type of attack against the mainstream media, is it warranted?
It certainly is warranted because you've seen before the primary, you saw it during the general, and then you saw it during the transition, that the media continues their onslaught of lies and attacks against the President of the United States, the then candidate of the United States, President-elect of the United States, Donald Trump. So, of course, no one else will defend him, so he has to defend himself.
Right, and Adam, let me turn to you with the same question. I mean, you heard him. He claimed that the media was going to say he was ranting and raving. It did sound a little bit like a longer diatribe here, but this attack against the mainstream media for how biased they've been against him, is that warranted criticism?
You know, I think he's sort of stepped in it so many times. In a way, he's his own worst enemy. I'm not going to say, though, that the press doesn't have a kind of bias against him, but I think he does seem to make things worse. He comes out, he makes so many statements. He still, he talks about, 3 million illegals voted in the election, 14% non-citizens voting. We can't believe any of this about the Russian intelligence, undermining our elections. He makes so many statements that aren't substantiated. So a press that already, and I agree, already has a little bit of a bias against him, they go after it.
Right, and Autry, defend that a little bit, because I see Adam's point here. I mean, some of the things that President Trump says, he doesn't always provide evidence. He doesn't always provide substantiation. He either waits for other people to do it or waits for his team to do it. Does that make the bias from the mainstream media worse?
If you judge it from the point of view of the elites, then he got worse. But that's the problem. Everybody's judging things on how the elites, how Harvard and Yale and Stanford, how they look at it. But if you look at how American people look at it, it doesn't make any things worse. There's an old biblical verse that says, Liz, the letter kills, but the spirit makes alive. Donald Trump is not about the letter, he's about the spirit. And it's the spirit of him and his candidacy and his America First platform that has breathed life into the country.
If I could just briefly respond to that point, and and I appreciate that saying, that expression. I understand. Perhaps in certain circumstances he's coming from a good place, but his execution is absolutely terrible. That's why you heard, I think it was Kellyanne Conway that said, pay attention to his heart, what his heart means, not actually what he's saying. But it was more than more than what he was just saying that we shouldn't give credence to. In fact, we know what just happened with the executive order on immigration. I mean, there were lawful visa holders that are now being denied due process. So he's going out of his way to do things that aren't properly vetted. So I understand why the press is reacting why it is. I mean, that was an extremely poor execution.
The press is reacting like it is because it's not used to being challenged.
And in fact, they are withdrawing. They're withdrawing the order to create a new one, so the Court of Appeals even doesn't have to handle it. That's all I mean by execution. Of course, there has to be immigration reform in this country, but he needs to be doing things better.
Right. And
so out of all the things that Donald Trump has accomplished, he's withdrawn one executive order to write a new one because the courts are determined, the Ninth Circuit are determined to be against him, and you have a problem with the execution.
Right, and Adam, if I may, let me play the devil's advocate just for a moment here, because I think your example, I don't disagree with your example that the execution of that executive order was not rolled out very smoothly. I mean, I like the executive order, dislike it. I think we can all agree that it wasn't rolled out very smoothly, but I think you might be substantiating the point that the press is focusing so much on his demeanor, so much on what he said, that the number of stories about, his tweets, or the number of stories about his attitude or the things that he says off the cuff far outweigh the number of stories about what he's actually substantially accomplished. And if you look at what he's substantially accomplished, I mean, I don't think 1 in 10 liberals could actually name 5 things that he's done besides just what the media, stories that the media thinks that he's said to reporters, very fake news. not very many liberals could actually name the substantial things he's done.
There's, like I said, there's no question that there should be immigration reform, and the White House should be doing something about it, which they're attempting to do, which they executed it poorly. But the administration keeps, unfortunately, stepping in it with respect to what just happened this whole week, this whole debacle with Mike Flynn and people from the administration perhaps being in contact with Russia. There are so many issues that the media can pick up on. We can't pretend that these things aren't occurring.
Who illegally is in contact with Russia?
I'm sorry?
That's a fair question. We talked about this earlier in the show. We talked about evidence behind these claims, and I think that that's a very fair question that Autry puts forward, and that is, who is illegally in contact with Russia? If this is the case, conservative or not, whether or not I voted for Donald Trump, I would, condemn that. There's really no question of whether that's right or wrong, but we don't have any evidence. What we have is rumors. The mainstream media is spreading rumors. I mean, Adam, do you know evidence of this? Do you have evidence?
We just have leaks from intelligence officials with respect to the conversations that he purportedly had, and also there's some leaks going on in the media with respect to other people in the Trump administration. Of course, obviously, there has to be a hearing that's going to be conducted regarding these things, but again, these are things that the media obviously cannot ignore. They can't ignore possible contacts between Trump officials and Russia. They cannot ignore a poorly executed immigration reform. They cannot ignore all kinds of things. That is sort of their job.
Yes,
we need
a
press
to ignore
to look towards these things.
No, it's not, man.
That is the job of the press.
Their job is to look at substance. They're doing what the left is always concerned about: aesthetics and image. Just like with race, who's black, who's white, who's gay, who's straight. They're always concerned about image. I want a press concerned about the substance, results being done. Obama had the perfect image ever, but look at the results, man.
I think the press hasn't taken, in response to that, I don't think the press has come at him really hard with respect to him trying to bring jobs over to this country. But when the President of the United States, Donald Trump, makes all these missteps, it is the press's job to cover. It's the press's job to investigate.
Theoretically, Adam, I agree with you theoretically. The press should not be biased. If the president makes a misstep, if he says something bad, that's fine. That's the job of the press, to hold our public officials accountable. What I don't think is the job of the press is to spread rumors. I don't think that they should be writing stories with unsubstantiated claims, such as that the Donald Trump administration or his campaign had improper communications with Russia. We have no evidence of that besides some anonymous source somewhere that we don't know anything about their credibility making that claim. For all we know, that could be a public relations firm trying to smear a rumor against him. We don't have evidence. Gentlemen.
Speaking of no evidence, what about Bowling Green? This goes on and on.
Right, and that's a conversation for a different day. Perhaps that is. I mean, there's no mistake there. Kellyanne Conway made a mistake. Autry, quickly, last word here.
She admitted it. Listen,
there you go.
The bottom line is that the press, CNN, etc., they are all about lying to get their person in the White House. They want to impeach Donald Trump. They want him out of the White House. They want elite control of the education system, the university system, of Capitol Hill, the House, and the Senate.
I think everybody wants a president that works for America.
And that's what they're unhappy about.
No matter.